which of the 7 Death Arcana Personas in P3R has the most horrifying lore? Well, let's find out as I explain each one to you and rank them. Spoiler alert though, the ranking is nothing like their in-game level orders. In old Hindu story, Pisaca is a demon that feeds on the dead. They linger at the edge of the world, ruins, battlefield, places where people have died, and they are always hungry. But that's not why they're one of the most unsettling beings out there. What makes them different is how they attack. A Pisaca doesn't leap out at you. Instead, it's whisper. Old texts say they could possess people, make them sick, angry, or lose control of their thought completely. Sometimes, if a person died without the proper funeral rite, they would come back as one, blind, forever starving, and stuck in between, doomed to wonders and feed. Pretty strong start, and to be honest, one of the most terrifying subgenre in horror for me is the body horror, because you can't really run away from your own body. Plus, even if you're not a Pisaca, how do you know someone close to you isn't? So, I'm gonna have to give this one an A. The Pale Rider and the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse are prominent figures from the book of Revelation. Right at the end of the Bible, in one of John the Apostle's vision, a divine figure begins opening a set of seal scrolls, and with each seal that breaks, something devastating is released into the world. The first horse shows up and it's white. Its rider carries a bow and is giving a crown. Some say he represents conquest and domination. He's the signal that the apocalypse has begun. Next comes a red horse. Its riders carry a sword and is giving the powers to take peace from the earth. Wherever he rides, people and nations start waging war on each other. Then come the third, a black horse. The rider holds a pair of scales and is accompanied by a commanding voice that talks about the price of grains going up. Soon after, food becomes scarce, daily needs become luxuries, and famines started to spread. And then the 4th rider appears. This time, the horse is pale, but not the white or gray kind of pale you might expect. It's a strange sickly green, the color of the corpses. And riding that horse is Death himself. Behind him, Hades, or the underworld, follows. It's like wherever Death goes, the grave is already open, ready to take anyone in. Pale Riders, to me, is honestly a pretty scary story. I mean, the apocalypse isn't just the end of the world, it's the end of all things, including times and even space itself. However, that's also what makes it a bit less scary, because I don't think I'm going to live to see that event anyway, assuming it's even true. And I think what makes the story scary is more about the entire events rather than the Pale Rider himself. So for this one, I think I'll put it in a B tier. Scary, but lightly irrelevant to me. In Haitian voodoo, there's a belief in a creator god, but he doesn't usually get involved in people's life. So instead of praying directly to him, people worship powerful spirits called Loa. These spirits are like messengers or helper. Some help with love, others with health, but people don't just turn to the Loa for positive reason. They also summon them for darker things like revenge. Now, the way people connect with the Loa is pretty unique. During voodoo ceremonies, one of the Loa might actually show up by taking over someone's body. When that happens, the person changes completely. They move, speak, and act like the spirit that comes through them. However, this isn't seen as scary, but rather a sign of deep respect and trust. One of the most feared Loa is a spirit called Baron Criminel. Yes, that is really his name. People say he's the soul of the first murderer. When he possesses someone, he's known for threatening to kill those nearby and asking for violent offerings, like animals burned alive. This one is a bit difficult to rank for me, since it's somewhat similar to the Pisaca, so it wouldn't feel fair to rank it super low, but honestly, I'm not too afraid of this one. Well, not as much as I'm afraid of a person. Think about it, technically, he only possesses people who let him in, and even then, it's not like they gain super strength or anything. I think the scariest thing about this is the atmosphere. Like if you were actually there in person witnessing the voodoo, rough, but for me, this is a C. Mot is the god of death from ancient Canaanite story. His name literally means death. But what makes him different from the other gods and what makes him scary is that people didn't worship him. Unlike other gods you could try to please to get something in return, Mot wasn't honored or invited. He was more like a force of nature, something people fear, not something they try to bargain with. The most famous story about him starts with another god, Bao. Bao is a god of rain and storm. He made crops grow, which is why he's also seen as a god of life. In the story, after building his palace in the heavens, Bao sends an invitation to Mot to come feast and celebrate with him. However, Mot didn't like that. He sees it as a challenge, a mockery. He then tells Bao that he's going to swallow him like bread and drag him down into the earth. And well, that's exactly what happened. Bao vanished, the rain stopped, and without rain, the land starts to dry out, leading to one of the greatest droughts the world has ever known. However, that wasn't the end of the story, and Bao wasn't gone for good. Later, his sister, Anat, a warrior goddess, stormed into the underworld, finds Mot, and completely annihilates him into tiny pieces. Then she scatters his remains to the wind. With Mot defeated, Bao returns, the rain comes back, and life flourishes once more. Yet Mot's story doesn't end there. Like death itself, he's always come back, waiting for the moment to challenge Bao again. Their battles is endless, and the story is a powerful symbol of the cycle of life and death, drought and renewal. Okay, usually I like this kinds of story that teach us about balance and how everything in the world functions together. But since today we're ranking how scary the lore is, this one has to be very low. I mean, sure, Mot come back, but in another part of the story that I left out, he gets defeated again. So that's kind of undersell how powerful he is really. I think this one is a D. Samael's names can be translated as venom of gods, and depending on which old tradition you look up, he might have been heaven's executioner, or the force behind some of humanity's darkest moment. Anyway, let's start with the basics. Samael show up in a lot of old religion story, especially in Jewish texts, but also in Christian and Gnostic one as well. That said, he has multiple roles depending on the version, but the one people remember most is that he's the angel of death. He's the one said to take people's souls when they die. In one old story, he hovered over a person's bed with a sword, and just before they die, a drop of poison falls from blade into their mouth, suggesting that the real cause of death is actually the poison. But it doesn't stop there. A lot of stories also say he was the serpent in the Garden of Eden, the one who tricked Eve into eating the forbidden fruit. Some even claim his father her son, Cain, instead of Adam. Over time, he became the go-to figure when something bad needed to happen. Like if a prophet was killed or a nation turned against its god, you could bet Samael has something to do with it. Eventually, people started seeing him not just as an angel of death, but as a prince of demons. Some call him the accuser, the one who stood in heaven, pointing out every flaw in humanity's. Others said he's ruled over the dark side of spiritual world, right alongside a queen-like figure named Lilith. This guy's just a dick, really. But honestly, the majority of the story I just shared are mostly interpretation of the events rather than Samael directly being there to ruin everything. So it's more like he just take the credit, even though it's not clear if he's actually had a hand in those events or not. I like the story, but yeah, not scary at all. D. Now, there's a little girl in a blue or purple dress named Alice who show up in nearly every Shin Megami Tensei game. She looked like someone straight out of a storybook. Blonde hair, black shoes, hands politely folded, but she's always asked the same question to those who come across her. Will you die for me? At first, you might think she's a twisted version of Alice in Wonderland, and that's not too far off. Her design and story do borrow quite a bit from that fairy tale, but the inspiration runs darker than that. According to the in-game lore, Alice is the ghost of a young English girl who died tragically. Some say she was brought back by demons, others say she's a spirit that naturally drawn the dead toward her. Either way, she doesn't act like a normal child. The story goes that she would appear at night to misbehaving children, smiling sweetly, calling herself their friends, and then kill them in their sleep. In some story, like the original Shin Megami Tensei, she lived in a demon city surrounded by lost souls. She greeted the player with a smile and a question, asking if they want to be her friends or die. But the truth is, she doesn't understand the difference. Either way, she'll try to kill you. And yet, not every version of Alice is cruel. In a more recent story, she accidentally trapped human souls in a dream because she's lonely. When the players helped her understand what she's done, she's sad, but let them go. That said, even after all that, she still asks the player, "Will you be my friends?" If anything going to get an S, it's this one. Apart from the unsettling contrast between her look and her action, for me, who is someone that is afraid of a lot of things, there's always one thing I fear more than anything, and that one thing is unpredictabilities. And Alice is exactly that. The idea that there might be some kind of pattern to her, something you can recognize to survive the encounters, is what gives you hope. But it's also terrifying because you can't tell if it worked or not. Like, imagine you're locked in the room, you watch someone press a switch and get to leave, but when the next person tries it, a boulder drops and crushes them. Now it's your turn. Even though you saw it work before, the fear shoots through the roof because you're not sure if it will work again. Thanatos is the personification of death in Greek mythology, but he's not someone to be feared in the way people often imagine. Thanatos represents a quiet, peaceful end, the moment life fades without violence or struggle. This sets him apart from the curious, female spirit of violence death who are drawn to bloody battlefields. Thanatos is said to have been born from Nyx, the goddess of the night. He's often described metaphorically as cold and unyielding. He's also the twin brother of Hypnos, the personification of sleep. That said, Thanatos doesn't appear often in myth, largely because death was usually treated as a background force rather than a character. But when he does show up, the stories get interesting. One well-known tale involves King Sisyphus, who tried to escape death. When Thanatos came for him, Sisyphus tricked him and managed to chain him up. With death locked away, you would think the world would be a better place. But because no one could die, the old and the sick continued to suffer without relief. The natural cycle of life and death was disrupted, and sacrifices to the gods could no longer be made. Eventually, the war god Ares stepped in and freed Thanatos so the natural orders could return. Another story comes from the play Alcestis. When Queen Alcestis offers her life in place of her husband's, Thanatos arrived to take her. But Heracles happened to be nearby. He wrestled Thanatos and forced him to retreat, allowing Alcestis to return to life. It's one of the rare times Thanatos is shown losing, though only because he was physically overpowered by one of the strongest heroes in the Greek pantheons. That said, the most unsettling facet of Thanatos is his implacable and indiscriminate nature. As Hesiod say, when he seizes a person, whoever of men's he holds fast, indicating an irreversible finality of peaceful death, unyielding to gods or mortals. Now, despite this being one of the tamest lores in today's video, it's definitely my favorite. And while it's not particularly scary, it still makes Thanatos well deserving of being the highest level Death Arcana in Persona 3 Reload. I mean, if you think about it, unlike most stories today, Thanatos doesn't really have a motive. He's just a function of the universe that doesn't discriminate. And despite the fact that most of his well-known story involve him being defeated, it's always temporally. And this reflects how life works. No matter how healthy, weak, or smart you are, eventually, one day, no matter how much you struggle to keep your eyes open, you'll have to surrender and let go. That said, since we're ranking based on how scary the lore is, I'll have to give him a B. However, that's probably the most perfect B tier I ever given to anything.